Joining us right now is CNBC contributor and former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He also serves on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina. And Scott, let's talk about this, because if you could use it for all these applications, it would truly be a miracle drug.
Right, and it would give providers a broader rationale to prescribe the drugs, even within the currently indicated narrow indications that are on the market. These drugs have been looked at in Alzheimer's for many years, and it gets to this question of whether or not the drugs are having a broader effect on inflammation, and particularly neuroinflammation. There's two trials underway that Novo has started, Evoke and Evoke Plus, that are randomizing 3,700 patients to placebo. It's expected to read out in 2026. There's also some small studies underway in academic universities. But there's been animal studies coming out of the NIH for years that have been suggestive that these drugs could have a positive effect on Alzheimer's disease by protecting neurons, by reducing inflammation. And it gets to this broader question of whether or not these drugs are having a wider systemic effect on the body that's leading to a lot of these positive things that we're seeing in clinical trials recently.
How does it work? I mean, the effect on reducing inflammation, how does that affect weight loss? How does that affect what's happening in the brain? How does that affect something that would potentially stop alcohol addiction, too? What's the connection?
Yeah, well, the alcohol addiction is a different pathway. The impact on inflammation isn't readily known. I mean, the exact precise mechanism of these drugs on reducing inflammation isn't very clear. We know it's having an effect on the metabolic pathways in the body, and that could be contributing to a reduction in inflammation. But these things have been evaluated for many years and have been suggested for many years. So, now that we're doing larger trials, you're starting to unearth these potentially positive impacts. There's also evidence, there's been evidence for years that reductions in weight have a positive impact on Alzheimer's disease as well. And people who are obese, who have weight reduction earlier in their life, have a reduced risk for developing Alzheimer's disease relative to people who are overweight, because we know that being overweight, obesity, is a predictor for Alzheimer's disease. So weight alone has been implicated in the pathway, and there's one university that's looking at whether or not these drugs lead to a reduction in the tau and the amyloid plaques specifically. And so that would be one mechanism by which potentially the reduction in inflammation could have a positive impact on these diseases. The alcohol issue, the reduction in alcoholism and other kinds of addictive behaviors, is a question of whether or not these drugs, through their centrally acting mechanism, are having an impact on the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, so the actual pleasure-seeking pathways in the brain. We know that they have an impact locally in the gut. We also know that they have a central impact. They actually reduce your craving for food, and that's one of the ways that they lead to reductions in weight. And the question is whether or not that same pathway, impacting that same pathway, is also going to have an effect on things like alcohol addiction, opioid addiction, other kinds of addictive behaviors.
Do they make you feel sick? Because when you feel sick, you don't want to have anything to eat, you don't want to have anything to drink. Do you feel good when you're taking these drugs? You just feel sick if you eat or drink anything?
Yeah, look, when you talk to people who are on these drugs, there's definitely a period where they need to adjust to these drugs. So you have to titrate patients on them slowly. A lot of patients do have a reaction when they first come on these drugs. Their body acclimates to them, and they're able to tolerate them longer term without significant side effects, the kinds of side effects that you're talking about. There's some patients who don't find these drugs tolerable, and they need to come off of them. They do lead to, when you first come on them, they lead to a sense of fullness. Some people can have nausea, vomiting from them, because they do slow gastric emptying, and that could be adjusting to these drugs. That initial period can be difficult for some patients. And that initial period also probably contributes to the weight loss that people are experiencing right away, because if they feel full and nauseous, they just don't eat as much.
Is there any reason to think that alcoholism has to do with the dopamine pathway? It's nothing like substance abuse. Is it the same pathway? That I don't think people that drink alcohol get some type of feeling, I guess a little bit. Is it the same pathway as like a cocaine or opium?
Yeah, look, it's any kind of addictive behavior, and actually the animal studies that have been done looking at these drugs and whether or not these drugs can positively impact that feedback loop, that pleasure-seeking feedback loop, actually looked at rats that were addicted to cocaine and also opioids, as well as alcohol. So there's been animal studies that have suggested that when you administer these drugs to rats and other animals in a research setting, you do reduce addictive behavior.
Interesting.